Hey fellow foodies, welcome. What's that? What's on the menu today? Good question. We are building layers of flavor today, starting with ground beef, cream corn, and then topping it with some potatoes, and we're gonna bake it off in the oven. What do we call that? We call that shepherd's pie, another comfort food classic, at least in my household growing up. This one is gonna be a little different because the beef is very lean beef, very herbaceous, a little hint of Dijon mustard in it. For the cream corn, we're gonna add some truffle oil to give it a very unique flavor, and then some hot sauce just to give it a little extra kick. For the potatoes, we're gonna mix sweet potatoes with russet potatoes. So it's gonna have a little bit of a sweet balance, and then we're gonna top it with sesame seeds and some pecans when we bake it off. What do you say? Let's get cooking. Okay, let's start off with our grocery list. As you see, it's a pretty straightforward list of somewhat normal pantry items. Most of the other items are pretty readily available at most grocery stores. The hot sauce should be open to your interpretation. Whatever you like is what you should use. Let's get some water in a pot. Get our potatoes peeled. And you may have noticed that there's only a few potatoes in comparison to the large pot that I used with water. And the reason that I do that is because you want your potatoes through the simmering or boiling process to have room to move around. This will allow for even cooking. We're going to add some salt to our water and our potatoes. This is a very important step. It adds seasoning to our potatoes when we're cooking. Bring it to a boil. This will probably take about 15 to 20 minutes to cook. Once cooked, strain your potatoes. Then let's get them mashed up. I like to take the extra step and get them very fine. So if you have a ricer or anything to that such, I recommend using it. However, if you like a more rustic potato and traditional hand masher or a large fork, that's fine as well. Add butter, fresh thyme, and truffle oil, salt, some pepper. We're going to mix it up until everything is well incorporated. Both the potatoes meld very well together and the butter is melted. For our beef, we're gonna add oil to a hot pan, some garlic, our onions. I'm gonna saute this for a little bit until the onions just start to caramelize, to which we're gonna add the oregano and the ground beef. The ground beef that I chose is a 90-10, which ultimately means that there's 90% beef to 10% fat. This is somewhat very lean. The reason why I chose a leaner cut of beef is because I wanted less of the fat drippings. I'm going to season it with salt and ground black pepper, tablespoon of Dijon mustard, and we're going to give it a hefty amount of dashes of wort sauce. I just call it wort sauce because I get tongue-tied by calling it for what it is. Transfer our beef that's fully cooked into a pan. For the cream corn, very simple. Basically, it's a can of cream-style corn, salt, hot sauce of choice, and a couple ounces of white truffle oil. We're going to pour our truffle oil, followed by our hot sauce, and a little bit of salt. Remember that the hot sauce is generally salty as it is, so just be very careful when doing so. Mix it up. Simple and easy. So to assemble, we do our ground beef first, followed by our cream corn, topped with our potatoes. So make sure you're choosing an oven-safe baking dish. So traditionally, it is equal parts ground beef, 2 potatoes. I like to go a little heavier on the ground beef because I'm more of a carnivore. Top it with some cream corn, just enough to add the corn flavor and some extra moisture to the dish when it's being baked off. If you like extra corn and less potatoes and less beef, by all means, feel free to do so. Personally, as I aforementioned, I like more beef than the other ingredients, so you can choose to do dollops. You can also use a piping bag. This is optional, but I think it adds a very nice texture and flavor profile if you add sesame seeds and some toasted pecans to it before you bake it off. Let's throw it in the oven. So the oven's at 400. We're going to cook for about 20 to 30 minutes. And there you have it, shepherd's pie. Let's give it a taste. Nice and creamy. The pecans are nicely toasted, as are the sesame seeds. Delicious.